Good to see you, Minister. I'm Ignatius Lim. I'm from Singapore. I work for Shell as the head of international and government relations for Asia Pacific. So for our question, in fact, we have quite a wide range of questions in energy space, given that our company look into this whole range of issues. For a couple of days, last few days, as we progress with different meetings, we also get a good sense of the energy mix of Cambodia going forward next 5 to 10 years, which is exciting. A lot of renewables, a lot of solar. In fact, we also talk about carbon credit. How do we export carbon credit so that we can optimize the value of carbon credit creation? So I'm clearly, for the first question, I would like to hear from the ministers a lot more details about the plan and how private sector can participate in those areas. This is one. And two, of course, we're also very keen to understand the conventional oil and gas space in Cambodia, given that it is also an important part of your energy transitions and your NDC target in 2050. To be a bit more particular about that, we are keen to hear your view about the prospectivity of Block A. I guess I will stop here. and thanks for taking time to seeing us. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Let me go straight to your question in terms of the direction in a nutshell. If you look at the number of our energy footprint, energy generation mix, basically, by the end of 2022, domestic combined with the imported hydro from Laos is basically already 62%. If you look at the ASEAN commitment as a whole, as a group, basically by 2030, they would like to see something like 35% renewable achieved by ASEAN. Cambodia has already made progress far from it. You have seen in the past that some of the bias press, especially press that has a political agenda, write different story about Cambodia. But their story are not matched by facts on the ground. KPMG is here today. EDC has been an important client of KPMG. When it comes to accounting finance, when it comes to energy, you can't manipulate numbers around. Numbers are numbers. So the reason why I have chosen to put it up front is that with a good foresight from the previous Prime Minister, Samdech Hun Sen, and the continuation of that policy under the current Prime Minister, Dr. Hun Manet, we have been making extremely good progress. By any stretch of imagination, our numbers are good. So when some people say that they cannot invest in Cambodia because the renewable energy is not sufficient, we would say two things. One is our number is quite decent. If you compare that with global average, be my guests. If you compare it with the United States, we are fine with that. If you compare that with Australia, we are perfectly fine with that. Australia may have 25% renewable, wind and solar. But what happened to the 60+%, 7%? It's still gas and coal. We are the opposite. If Cambodia is pitched against Bangladesh, which is another key exporting country for garments, we are far better. So are we happy with where we are, and are we not going to do more? Absolutely not. So this is the question, and also the answer to number two, which is basically that we're going to do a lot more to make sure that our renewable footprint is going to continue to be improved, and our reliability will also be there. While at the same time, we are going to be working very hard to make sure that the cost of energy doesn't go up. And hopefully, if we have a chance, the cost of energy can be brought down. Now, one can say about clean energy. One can continue to make the case about greenness, but we are particularly interested in emphasizing further that the green color itself is not sufficient if it is not accompanied by the reliability that the industry wants. It wouldn't make any sense if you have power cut every 2 hours or the blackout every week. And in fact, it could be much more costly to the industry than anything else if that were to happen. Especially when for industry that are going for high tech and technology based, the disruption, the unreliable supply would be extremely costly. So yes, we are going to emphasize on green energy footprint, which are, like I said, by the end of 2022, we already had 62% in terms of stored capacity green. But we're going to further emphasize reliability issue is an important issue that requires a lot of investment and time and patience. A good amount of patience needs to be there. But on top of reliability, we also further emphasize the costs, which industry is interested in. You know, after COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic, and also after the war in Ukraine, the cost of energy has risen. If you look at countries across the world, no country is spared from that impact. You are in Cambodia, you are lucky because we have not raised the cost of energy by a single cent. In fact, we have been making progress to reduce energy a bit further. So our subsidy has increased in the interest of making sure that in this difficult time, industry and society at large continue to have the support from the energy sector. You look at Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, they have increased the tariff. Cambodia has not increased tariff because we are basically interested in making sure that the cost factor is important, if not more, than the green color that we're also advocating for. And we're going to do that as well. The fourth component of our energy policy is especially that underpins the vision forward by the Prime Minister, Dr. Hun Manet, is to make sure that energy going forward is also more equitable. We want to see energy policies not only greener, cost-effective, and reliable, but we also would like to see that the energy transmission, distribution, and generation system as a whole, basically our energy ecosystem, has to be more equitable and more just. And that's the reason why I have put in place that for the existing roughly about 500, almost 500 megawatt solar to be deployed in addition in the next 3 years, will employ at least 60% in the operation when we talk about women employment. And we are going to address the condition of women workers coming to work for those installation of solar farm, for example. So this is part and parcel of the way we see that as we go cleaner, there's a lot more we go to do when it comes to costs, when it comes to reliability, when it comes to the equity part, looking at most vulnerable corner population, remote areas, and how we can empower them, how we can take them on board in this process together. So we're not looking at just green, but we're looking at more than that. I think by that statement, you can already see what are the things we are trying to do a bit more differently than the past. I have already talked to the solar farm concessionaires, for example, who agree with me, and we are going to issue the letter hopefully in the next 1 or 2 days. And they say that they can accommodate the request, and we're going to make that happen. Going forward, by 2030, we would look at, and we are quite certain with the probability of 99.9%, that our renewable energy will not be less than 70% in the generation mix. That would be a great number if you compare to many countries. It's going to, and that more than 70% renewable energy by 2030 will be underpinned by enforcement in terms of grid resiliency to make sure the grid's more reliable, like I said, for industry. That we are looking at that to maintain the cost also, in terms of not increasing the cost, our commitment, if we can. And if we even can do better, and we're looking at that as well, as to make sure that, if possible, we can reduce the cost. And the equity issue I just mentioned. It's going to be further underpinned by the aggressive energy efficiency program that for the first time we're going to put in place. And we just put a proposal to the Prime Minister, and the proposal has come back with his 100% approval that this ministry is going to take the lead in energy efficiency for the government. And we're also going to take the lead in electrifying everything else, starting with e-mobility. Because it's no point decarbonizing energy alone. If you look at the emission of energy today in Cambodia, energy generation emits less than 12%. But a whole bunch of other sectors emits a lot more. Even transport emits a lot more. Even agriculture emits a lot more. So energy is going to take the leadership role in decarbonizing, in electrifying those other sectors that needs to be decarbonized. And with the blessing of the Prime Minister, this ministry is going to take the lead in e-mobility as well. So we're soon going to form a committee that will cut across sectors, and priority in our minds are the transport sector, the light transport sector, the tuk-tuk, for example. And again, it comes in two ways. It's not only about reducing emission from tuk-tuk or taxi, for example. Our interest to see that their income is going to be raised, because they cannot cope with the high cost of oil, for example, or LPG. You're from Shell, you know the cost of oil has increased because of pandemic and the war. But suppose, just imagine for a second that if this 50,000 tuk-tuk on the street in Phnom Penh could be hooked up to our electricity grid, they could decarbonize. At the same time, they could save a lot of money and therefore raise their net income immediately. And we are going to address that component. So you get a sense of why we've been so busy, why I've been flying around to make it happen. And I'm pretty sure that we're on our way. In that context, there will be a lot of roles for the private sector to play. If you look at the generation to date, all solar farms, all renewables basically, has been the product of the investment by the private sector. Through our PPP, we have been able to mobilize billions of dollars into the sector, transmission and generation. Hydropower has been an important recipient of that effort. Solar farm, 100% as well. We began with the first pilot 10 megawatt in Bavat, which is a joint venture between Sunset Singapore and a local company. Since then, we have scaled up significantly. And give us 3 years, you will see how much more we can do. So as we are going to scale up renewables, that will consist of hydropower, and solar will play a predominant role in RE going forward. And we will also be able, we believe, in the near future, take care of wind as well. Because given the mix that they are putting in place, I think there will be a role for wind energy to play. And again, we're going to look to members of the private sector. We have been engaged in their talks inside Cambodia and also across the border to Laos as well. So when we look at this energy expansion, we are not going to be narrow-minded in terms of whatever has to be done inside Cambodia. And that's the reason why we've been teaming up with Minister Tan Sri Leng of Singapore to make sure that we can scale up bilateral arrangements to a sub-regional and hopefully a regional ASEAN power grid. Because we believe that we'll meet the energy demand of the economic development in ASEAN, but also we can push the sharing of resources to make sure that the complementarity has the optimal effect. For example, through our energy efficiency program, if we do it correctly between now and 2030, we could potentially save about 1,500 megawatt, if I'm not wrong, Dr. Narun, from not having to do anything. Meaning to say that if we can save in terms of electrical appliances, if we can make our buildings more efficient, if we can make EV a little bit more, then we do not have to put in the system 1,500 megawatt. Imagine how much more we don't have to encroach onto the environment. So that's our interest. So there will be opportunity for private sector to play, be it subsea cable from Singapore all the way to Vietnam, Cambodia, and the investment in the upstream generation project like solar, wind, and hydropower. We are on the verge of announcing a 1,000 megawatt pump storage hydropower. It's going to be for the first time that this country will ever have a pump storage hydropower. And it's going to open many windows of possibilities for renewable scale up. And again, purely private sector led. The role of the government will be rule reinforcement. My vision for energy policy, and that has been endorsed by the Prime Minister, is that in areas where we have the interest by the private sector, we will make sure that there will be a legal and commercial condition and framework in place so that you can invest. We will not step in to crowd you out. We will make sure that everything we do will be to crowd you in where you fit. Where we go in is instances where the interest of the market will be a bit less, especially when you look at further field, remote area, that the investment efficiency is not that strong, and it requires our government to step in order to make sure that that no community will be left off. But again, it requires government intervention. It requires subsidy, for example, to make it happen. So I think that language should be understood, and I think it should be pleasing to you. I hope it should be pleasing to you. If the subsea cable from Singapore and to Cambodia can happen, it will be billions of dollars investment that will be required, and no one company can do alone. There will be a consortium of companies doing this and that. So I think that will keep you posted as we progress along. Cambodia has received conditional approval from Singapore for at least 1 to 1.2 gigawatt of renewable energy export to Singapore. That's not to mention the many billion potential investment in subsea cable. So our current effort is on the feasibility study of that subsea cable. We have to work with participating governments, especially those of Vietnam and Malaysia. I was asked in the panel discussion in Singapore a few days ago, along with Total Energy and others, what would be the gap going forward? And my first point is knowledge, information, political commitment gap. It begins with mindset. It begins with the political will, because physical infrastructure resources we can mobilize. But the absence of political will and readiness is a non-starter. That we can do better together to save our planet, to meet our economic obligations by doing together a joint effort to fight against climate change. We believe that by doing together, we can scale up from bilateral arrangement to sub-regional and regional. Now, going to the conventional oil and gas, oil and gas will have a role to play. The way we see our path to net zero, it looks something like this, that at least 70 to 80% renewable that will consist of hydro, good hydro. And when I say good hydro, I mean Cambodia will not do hydro on the Mekong mainstream. We are the only Mekong country that has said so officially, because we are interested in the ecology of the Mekong, the Tonle Sap, the way of life of the people. Yes, we need energy. If I were to put 800 megawatt in Stung Treng province today, I could give you cheap energy in the next 5 years, cheaper than now. But there would be a big problem to the ecology of the Mekong mainstream. There would be some problem with the people dependent on the Mekong for their way of life. And there will be a problem for the Mekong Delta on the Vietnamese side downstream. So Cambodia position, we take care of this. We are passionate and we are committed. So when I say good hydro, I look at the balancing between this and that. So we are the only Mekong country that says so. So we believe that the ideal path for Cambodia, and it's also a commitment in that direction, because when I say that, I actually put the commitment in that we like to see the wind, solar, hydro will make up about 7 to 80% of renewable portion. And the 20% will come in two components in order to reach us to net zero by 2050. One is energy efficiency program, because the world cannot decarbonize if we all going to use a lot more energy, more and more irresponsibly. We cannot stop people from using electricity, but we will work with the members of the public and the private sector to reduce the energy intensity, in essence, to avoid the need to put more power plants, but still meeting social economic development and decarbonize our world at the same time. So the way to net zero is 7 to 80% renewable, and then we have energy efficiency program and a small complementary role by LNG, for example. So we see LNG is going to play a role beyond 2030. And that where Total Energy, Shell, Caltex, and others in the oil and gas industry can come in terms of the infrastructure development, and perhaps, and not perhaps 100% in terms of supply of LNG coming forward. And you may be interested to know what would be the scale. Anywhere between 800 megawatt to 1,000 plus, that is the scale that we're looking at in terms of the installed capacity for that LNG power plants. And where it will be in Koh Kong. And because we are going to stop the 700 megawatt coal plant that we signed and repurpose it to LNG. So that should be another good note for you. that we are not only not doing new plants, but we actually, if we can have the opportunity, we also repurpose, like this one we do. So we've been talking and we agree that the 700 coal plant in Kokong will be replaced by the LNG instead. And that will be coming into the commissioning stage after 2030. And the reason why we want to postpone that one is because we believe that we can do more aggressive renewables before that need. And also to maintain the costs for you. Because if you were to put LNG today, it would be very comfortable, it would be very stable, but then the cost would be significant. And you don't want to pay more, I believe, around here. So we by this long statement to you, A, to show you the commitment, B, to show you the direction going forward, but C, we will invite you to have your members to have a balanced approach with us as well. Many times I have to complain. And this is my complaint. I think I have the right to do that, and you have the right to complain back. After all, partners complain, even husband and wife do complain. Sometimes we don't even talk to each other for a few days. But that we have to share the same bed for many years to come, and hopefully forever. There has been ad hoc distraction a little bit. I say a little bit, I underline a little bit, okay? It's not a major big deal, it's not a big headache, but still a small distraction in terms of solar rooftops. Now, it would be difficult to make the case that only when you put on your own factory rooftop, then it's clean. Can't say that. It may be good for one particular factory if you can more or less free ride. I have to say that. Now, going forward, you will see the type of conversation I'm going to conduct with you. It will be very candid because we want to get things done. Why almost free ride? We are trying to look at Cambodia as a whole ecosystem that consists of sufficiency in supply, that consists of better reliability, that will have the cost that will not go up, that the energy going forward will be more equitable for all. So we are the custodian of the national economic welfare, if I may put it. And that it is our obligation as government to make sure that these go hand in hand. And we will not leave any one corner, one community behind, just because they don't have a voice. We must make sure that those voices are protected. So if, for example, if we could put 100 megawatt for January next year, to people like me, we have two choices. Do we allow this 100 megawatt capacity to be deployed recklessly here and there by a few folks? It can maybe like 10 folks, each take 10 megawatts. And then they don't pay capacity charge, which is the backup power that we have signed on a take-or-pay basis with Vietnam, with Laos, with Thailand, with the IPPs in Cambodia. So if you don't pay capacity charge, you don't pay the backup power. In essence, one can make the argument that it's a free ride because the energy that we line up for you 24 hours a day, anytime you draw, you can have it. It's standing by. And the transmission and distribution that have been invested, it's standby. It's a standby for you. And you don't want to chip in. If you don't want to chip in, what could happen? Theoretically, the non-solar rooftop installers, those who do not install, will have to pay a higher price for that. We don't want that to happen. So we can still make Cambodia green. And later we are working, not later, we are now working with UNDP to have the not quota, the green energy certification. We are in the process. Please give a little bit of time. Because if we work, we could easily do ourselves, but you may not believe it, or your buyer may not believe it. So that's why we team up with UNDP and others to make the green energy certification for you. On top of that, we also, before I go to point number 2, let me just go to point number 1. I say the same thing first around each issue. So if we have 100 megawatt for early January next year, because the grid cannot put more at that given time, then we can have two options. One option is to do a grid scale, and we can add 100 megawatt of clean energy to the whole system, which is still Cambodia. And the benefit from that will go to everyone in the community, whether you install rooftop or not, you will get that benefit. And the cost is the best. If you look at private sector deployment on rooftop, the cost that we find out is no less than 9 cents per kilowatt hour. And the cost of grid scale solar farm is a few cents. Imagine, if we can have these few cents, we can maintain the cost for you as a whole and the entire population of Cambodia. So that is the reason why we are advocating as a matter of public policy, for the 4 components I have raised before, we must, at this stage and in the foreseeable future, I'm not saying forever, when economic structure changes, then we can see power play differently. But for the time being and the foreseeable future, grid scale solar deployment make much more sense from the public policy perspective. Secondly, it makes much more sense for technical perspective. For example, if you deploy a lot in one place, and it's not about factory, okay? I'm not saying about factory alone. I'm talking about commercial also. I'm talking about private individual as well. So if they deploy in too much in area that the consumption, the load is not strong, you see the imbalance. You deploy aggressively because nobody controls them. And happen that perhaps Siem Reap has a lot more than Svay Rieng, than Bavat, than Phnom Penh, for example. So it may not be the best. And also, from the reliability perspective, we want to deploy the solar more strategically so that we don't have the cloud and rain in Phnom Penh and the whole system goes off. And then it could trigger a blackout. So that's why we deploy, even if we need 300 megawatt, we may put 40 or 80 in Prey Svay Rieng, we may put 60 in Kampong Chnang, we may put this and that. And we look at where the radiation gives the most to get the best buck out of the solar deployment. That's also from the technical perspective. From the agricultural land use perspective, we don't want to take anywhere where agricultural land can be used, but used for solar deployment. Like we choose Kampong Chnang, rocky, unfertile soil. Okay, used for solar, it's good. But rooftop has a role to play, we understand. But we only ask that if you do rooftop, respect 2 things. One is chip in the backup power to support the backup power. You cannot install and don't want to pay capacity charge, because that capacity charge is the backup power. Because what happens if EDC, the national grid, will eliminate that backup power for you? Now, if you install the rooftop for yourself and you do not synchronize with the grid, perfectly fine. Just drop us a note, we give you the permission, And you can run 100% on your own solar system or mini grid. If you're not synchronized with the grid, you don't draw backup power, then you don't have to chip in. No problem. And our policy allow for it. Not a problem. But if you put this, please do that. But okay, we want to do more also. It doesn't mean that seeing this constraint and let us stop there. We don't stop there. We are working with UNDP. And the ministry has been working with EDC to allocate some quota for the industry. For example, as an example, if we have 300 megawatts for the next few years, let's allocate something out of that. Take out consciously and ask perhaps industrial zone, do you want to install some? We can give you some so that we can scale back from the national grid quota. Say, how much percentage we discussed before? 10 to 15%, I remember. Yes. For example, 10 to 15% of the solar quota nationally we can put at a given time. We could take 15% and discuss with people like you, and you can deploy. So if we could do that together, we could meet the 4 principles of sufficiency, green sufficiency, in supply, reliability we need, cost we want, and the equity issue we advocate for. So I believe that it should make sense to you. So we will have solar rooftop, but let us do it responsibly together. We do not have any vested interest to hold it back. We want to scale up green energy, but we want to scale up respecting the 4 components, namely sufficient supply, green sufficient supply, reliability, strong reliability of the grid, cost that doesn't go up. In fact, if it can go down, it's better, and equity issue. On Block A, now KrisEnergy has given up. We are in the process of trying to find the takeover. So if you have anyone who has the financial and experience and capability to do it, bring to me as soon as possible on a first-come, first-served basis. Now, we have received 2 proposals, but we don't believe that they do have the capability. We have one from China. We have one, a Chinese small private company. We don't see that they have the capability. We see one from a Canadian private individual. We don't think an individual can do it. So we talked to Total, we talked to others, please. And we did 2 things. One is to take over and extract the oil and before we close down. Or to take a look and assess for us as a consultant. We can also look to it, what to do. So AP, we need that. So please spread words out and help us.
Fantastic to hear your words, Your Excellency. And I have to say, I am somewhat concerned. I think there is going to be a bit of a war between investors looking to come to Cambodia to get into Cambodia's energy sector.